It's an opening straight out of a classic cyberpunk science fiction story. It's over 100 years in the future. We see an industrial, neon-drenched city on Earth, which has turned into an overpopulated, polluted, dystopian hellhole. Am I describing Blade Runner or its recent legacy sequel? Maybe I'm talking about Alita Battle Angel, or that Total Recall remake that no one saw. Or would you be surprised if I told you this exact opening is actually from a little-known movie called Avatar? Well, okay, you probably aren't that surprised since you're here because you clicked a thumbnail showing some blue aliens in it, which makes it pretty obvious I'm going to be talking about Avatar. But you might be surprised to learn that Avatar has an opening that looks almost like some generic 2000s show from the Sci-Fi channel, especially since this wasn't how the movie actually started when it came out back in 2009. The original opening to James Cameron's sci-fi epic begins with the protagonist, Jake Sully, about to land on the distant moon known as Pandora, a world of lush jungles and exotic creatures that's inhabited by blue humanoids known as the Na'vi. This is where the entire movie takes place. In fact, we never even saw what Earth looked like in the original version. So where did this alternate opening come from? It's actually from a different version of Avatar that wasn't in theaters. And guess what? There are more new scenes, too. This alternate cut adds a backstory about one of the initial clashes between the Na'vi and the RDA militants that turned tragic.
What happened here?
Which also involved Neytiri's sister, who was never mentioned in the original version. And remember Sute, the aggressive Na'vi warrior who wasn't too fond of Jake Sully? Didn't it seem like his ending in the movie was a bit abrupt? Well, he gets to have his own farewell in this version that also ties up another loose thread in the movie.
You cannot lead the people. You must lead them.
Naturally, this raises a lot of questions. What exactly are all the differences between the original Avatar and this alternate cut? Why were these scenes removed in the first place? Does the new love scene between Jake and Neytiri bump the movie from a PG-13 rating into a hard R? Not really. But the most important question of all is, which of the 3 different cuts of Avatar is the best? Oh yeah, by the way, I forgot to mention that before. There are actually 3 different versions of this movie. Let me explain. When Avatar came out in 2009, it didn't just set records at the box office. It was also one of, if not the longest 3D film with a wide theatrical release, at a runtime of over 2.5 hours. That required extensive trimming from Cameron and his editors, who ended up cutting over an hour of footage from the final film. The reasoning being that they just didn't know how long audiences could handle watching a 3D movie.
Nobody really had ever seen a 3D movie much over 90 or 100 minutes. So we had to be conservative because we didn't know what the fatigue to the eyes would be.
Those fears turned out to be unfounded, to put it lightly.
Avatar has done what no other film could do in the past 12 years, sink Titanic's box office bounty.
So when the opportunity presented itself, Cameron decided to take some of his favorite parts of the movie that got cut out and add them back in. Cameron was able to get the theatrical cut of Avatar down to 2 hours and 42 minutes. When he made his first alternate cut of the movie, officially titled the Special Edition, it actually got a limited theatrical release in August 2010. This version has about 9 more minutes of footage, for a total runtime of 2 hours and 51 minutes. But then, just a few months later, Cameron created a 3rd version of the movie called the Collector's Extended Cut as part of the home video release. This cut includes all the new footage from the Special Edition and then adds in 8 more minutes of footage, pushing the runtime to 2 hours and 59 minutes. Now, since we're going to be talking about all 3 versions of Avatar in this video, it could easily get confusing which version I'm referring to. So here's a little help for you to keep things straight. Anytime I'm referring to footage that's in all 3 cuts, you'll see a plain video with no border. If I'm just referring to footage in just the Special Edition and the Collector's Extended Cut, you'll see a blue border. And if the footage is only in the extended cut, there will be a red border. And I'll also label each shot with text as well. At the end, we'll take stock of what's different in all three versions, and I'll give you my take on the best cut of the movie. Make sense? We'll start with the biggest change in all three versions, the new opening on Earth. Are you ready? Let's dive in.
Sooner or later, though, you always have to wake up.
In the extended cut, we still open on Jake's eyes, but this time he barely stands out among a huge crowd on a city street. And as the camera cranes up, we see that we're in a densely populated city with flashing neon signs filling what little empty space there is. Next, we get a single shot of Jake inside his cramped apartment, as a TV program notes that they're making clones of Bengal tigers, which are now an extinct species. Then, in a bar, Jake sees a man abusing a woman and starts a fight with the guy before getting tossed out. That's when he's approached by the two men who inform him about the death of his brother, Tommy, and persuade Jake to take over his contract on Pandora. Let me tell you, the first time I watched the movie with this new opening, I couldn't believe that Cameron decided to cut it out. It gives us a ton of crucial world building and crumb laying for the rest of the story. Take this opening shot. Eerily, everyone around Jake is wearing some kind of mask, not only hinting how polluted the air is on Earth, but also mirroring the masks the humans wear on Pandora. And what's more interesting is that Jake's the only one not wearing a mask here, already foreshadowing that he doesn't belong with the humans. And so much of why this sequence works is because it draws a stark contrast between Earth and Pandora. This is common in a lot of science fiction and fantasy works. If the story begins in a location that feels small or mundane, then that makes the more fantastical elements in the later part of the story feel even bigger and more awe-inspiring. So it is with Avatar. The cold, cramped confines of Earth make the wide expanses of Pandora that much more inviting and larger than life. Hell, even the neon signs that Jake stares at outside the bar recall the bioluminescence of Pandora's nightlife, just dialed up in intensity. And we get some more info about Jake here too. The opening shows how even despite his disability, he's not afraid to stick up for what he thinks is right. He even outright says,
All I ever wanted in my sorry-ass life was a single thing worth fighting for.
And I kinda love how this match dissolve from Tommy's corpse being burned to Jake waking up in his cryotube symbolizes how Jake's about to be reborn on Pandora. Sure, some of the future city scenes here look kinda low budget compared to the rest of the movie, and we do get some more overwritten lines in Jake's narration, such as,
I became a Marine for the hardship. To be hammered on the anvil of life.
but this opening sets up both the themes of the movie and Jake's character. I can't help thinking Cameron was crazy for taking it out. Turns out, I wasn't the only one. It was very late in the day that we took it out. I walked in one day and said to my two editors, guys, I want each of you to cut a new version of the start of the film, Reel 1, that doesn't have any Earth in it at all. And they looked at me like I was out of my mind. I said, just grab a couple of things to use as flashbacks and start it in space when Jake opens his eyes. So even Cameron's editors, Stephen E. Rivkin and John Refua, thought he was insane. But his reasoning actually kinda makes sense. The guiding principle for me was the movie doesn't really start until we meet Neytiri. It's about Jake and Neytiri's relationship and where that relationship takes him. So every minute that we delayed meeting her, we looked at with extra scrutiny. So I thought to myself, well, between Cameron and me, only one of us has made multiple movies that have grossed over $1 billion, and the other is still working on that. Maybe, just maybe, he knows what he's talking about. So I went back and decided to give the original opening another chance, the one without the scenes on Earth. And you know what? I think Cameron might have been right. For one thing, his editors did a brilliant job of condensing that part of the story. You can tell they made a lot of precise choices when deciding which flashbacks and bits of narration to keep in. It tells you exactly what you need to know without cramming in unnecessary bits of information. So a lot of the groan-worthy lines from Jake's voiceover were taken out.
Strong prey on the weak. It's just the way things are.
I wonder if that'll play into the central conflict of the movie.
Strong prey on the weak.
Okay, we get it, Jim. We get it. And the way it's structured, this whole opening has a real dreamlike feel to it that sucks you in. Right after Jake's opening narration where he says,
I was free. Sooner or later, though, you always have to wake up.
it just feels more appropriate to begin with him actually waking up from cryo. And I have to imagine, if you saw Avatar in 3D, there's no better way to open the movie than this shot. But this part is the real reason I think this opening works. See if you can figure out why.
There's no such thing as an ex-Marine. You may be out, but you never lose the attitude. I told myself I could pass any test a man could pass.
Did you catch it? In this version, this is the first time we see Jake using a wheelchair. In the extended cut, it's apparent from the get-go, and the movie almost beats us over the head with that aspect of the character.
I told myself I can pass any test a man can pass.
But in the theatrical cut, the reveal doesn't come until we've already been introduced to Jake and his reason for going to Pandora. The movie lingers on his disability much less and lets us work out a lot of Jake's character on our own with this reveal. Plus, a side benefit is that some of that awkward narration from the Earth sequence fits in better here.
I told myself I could pass any test a man could pass.
I can see why a lot of people prefer the opening of the extended cut. It gives us more insight into Jake and the state of Earth, which makes Pandora itself more interesting. And later on, when the Na'vi are being threatened by the RDA, it makes the stakes of that story more apparent, since we've already seen the destruction humans have wrought upon Earth.
See the world we come from. There's no green there. They killed their mother. And they're gonna do the same here.
But Cameron probably remembered an old adage as he was editing the movie. Start your story as late as possible. By beginning with Jake's arrival on Pandora, we're instantly swept up in this world. And the reveal of his disability says all we need to know about his character at that point in time. But now, let's talk about another scene that I actually think should have been included. Sute's death. Sute's ending in the theatrical version is heroic but pretty abrupt. While battling some RDA militants on a gunship, he gets shot and falls out of the ship to his apparent death. The special edition adds a new scene immediately after the final battle, where Jake, Neytiri, and a group of Na'vi find Sute, played by Laz Alonso, in the jungle, barely clinging to life. Sute asks whether his people are safe, which Jake confirms, and then he asks Jake to mercy kill him and take over as the tribe's chief. Now, some people might quibble with the logistics of how Jake is back in his avatar body so soon after the final confrontation, but it's important to note we never saw his link unit destroyed. Quaritch did break the glass of the whole facility, letting in Pandora's poisonous air, but he didn't actually destroy Jake's unit, so there's nothing to suggest that Jake couldn't keep his mask on as he uses the unit to boot up his avatar. But let's talk about the 400-pound Viperwolf in the room. If you thought Avatar was too much of a white savior movie, which it kind of is, you're not going to like this scene, in which an indigenous warrior asks the white man to kill him so he can take over his tribe. I can acknowledge that that's one possible interpretation, but I actually believe this scene helps to push back against some of the white savior accusations that Avatar is occasionally guilty of. For one thing, at first Jake actually refuses Sute's request for him to take over the clan, saying,
I'm not officer material.
So I appreciated that he doesn't view himself yet as the true leader of the people, despite everything he's done for them so far. And this scene helps to tie up a loose end from the sequel, The Way of Water, when we see Jake has already become chieftain in the interim between the two movies. Yes, it already made sense that he leads the Na'vi, since he helped them fight off the RDA and gave up his human body, but it still felt a little questionable for Jake to be their leader. Seeing Sute actually deem Jake worthy of the title makes it all go down a little easier. And fun fact, it also ties in better to the epilogue of the first movie, where you can see Jake wearing the same necklace that was on Sute. According to Cameron, he took this scene out at the last minute because it messed with the rhythm of the ending and was just one dramatic beat too many. Apparently, all of the effects team at Weta actually complained to him about taking it out. And I think I would agree with them. This is an emotionally charged scene that is just a better way to give Sute a send-off. His death in the theatrical version is appropriately tragic, but honestly, it's so quick that the first 2 times I watched Avatar, I didn't even realize that that was him. This scene puts a nice button on his arc, as well as Jake's, because it calls back to the ritual mercy kill that he learned earlier. And you have to appreciate how after Sute calls Jake the or last shadow, we get the visual of Jake's shadow encompassing the dying Na'vi as Jake performs the ritual killing. To be clear, not every addition to the special edition or the extended cut is as substantial as these last two. A lot of added or extended scenes are really just about spending more time with the Na'vi or seeing another side of Pandora. Case in point. In this new scene, Jake takes part in a hunt of buffalo-like creatures called stern beasts, which weren't in the theatrical version at all. There's not a ton to this new sequence other than James Cameron inviting even more unfavorable comparisons to Dances with Wolves, but it does provide some visual setup for how the Na'vi hunt on their flying beasts, which pays off in the climax of the movie when Kevin Costner, Jake Sully, and the clan are doing battle with the military gunships. Now, here's where things get a little complicated because there are 2 new scenes from the special edition I want to talk about. But even though they add some important context to the story, I think they're incomplete in this alternate cut. The first comes shortly during Jake and Grace's first journey into the Pandoran jungle. In both the special and extended cuts, they visit an abandoned school that Grace used to teach at.
The kids were so bright, eager to learn, picked up English faster than I could teach it.
As the crew explore the school, we see signs that at some point, the soldiers attacked the school, but it's not clear why. The takeaway is that relations between the natives and the RDA are already frayed. There's even a shot of the Dr. Seuss book, The Lorax, which has a strong environmentalism theme to drive the point home. But despite this scene feeling like setup for later, we never get an answer as to what happened at the school in the special edition. Meanwhile, the extended cut expands on this scene with its own unique edition. In the middle of Jake's lessons with Neytiri, we're treated to this brief scene between him and Grace, where she finally tells him what happened at the school. The extended cut had previously established that Neytiri had a sister, Sawanin, who was never mentioned in the theatrical cut.
Neytiri was my best student. She and her sister Sawanin. Just amazing girls.
And as Grace explains, Sawanin led an attack on the RDA that ended up getting her killed right at the school, in front of Neytiri and Grace. Part of the reason I wish they had left this in is because this is the one scene in the movie where Sigourney Weaver actually gets to act.
I put 10 years of my life into that school. They called me Saatnuk. Mother. That kind of pain reaches back through the link.
And it also builds on her relationship with Jake, which I always thought was a little weak in the original cut. But this edition not only deepens Grace's character, but Neytiri's as well. While it's understandable why the Na'vi mistrust humans, this backstory gives Neytiri a much more personal reason to dislike them, which makes her emotional ups and downs with Jake hit even harder. I will admit that since it does come in the middle of the montage of Jake's lessons with Neytiri, it does disrupt that rhythm a bit, but I think that's a necessary trade-off. The inclusion of the earlier school scene really only makes sense when it's paired with the payoff in this scene. And here's another example of the extended version improving on both cuts. Remember that scene where an RDA machine destroys the Tree of Voices and nearly kills Neytiri and Jake's avatar? A short time later, there's a brief glimpse of the Na'vi performing a counterattack on RDA machines, followed by a scene where Selfridge and Quaritch survey the aftermath of the carnage. The implication is that the Na'vi were retaliating for the earlier attack on the tree and brutally killed a handful of humans.
The rest of the squad?
6 bodies, that's all.
Now, after this scene, it moves right into Selfridge authorizing Quaritch's attack on Home Tree.
All right, let's pull the trigger.
But in the extended cut, there's an extra line from Sigourney Weaver's Grace that really ties together this whole plot line.
Let's go.
You know, they never even wanted us to succeed. They bulldozed a sacred site on purpose to trigger a response. They're just fabricating this war to get what they want.
That line confirms that the earlier attack from the RDA on the Tree of Voices was intended to provoke a response from the Na'vi and give the RDA justification to attack Home Tree. This is a small but really significant detail that adds some nuance to Avatar's pretty simplistic politics. A colonizing force doesn't just attack the natives, it often tries to impugn their reputation first to help sell the idea that they're the enemy. Jake even states this sentiment with a line that's in all 3 versions, even the theatrical. But the line feels out of place there without Grace's statement to motivate it and to clarify just how evil and manipulative the RDA is.
Let's pack it up, let's go.
This is how it's done. When people are sitting on that you want, you'll make them your enemy.
Now, this whole sequence of events takes about 24 hours, so we lose some of the momentum in the theatrical cut, which goes right from Jake's video recording confirming the Na'vi won't leave Home Tree, right into Selfridge authorizing Quaritch to attack them. Also, it doesn't really make a ton of sense for Quaritch to suggest using gas to be more humane after seeing the carnage the Na'vi inflicted upon his own troops, so I might have cut that line. But despite these caveats, I do wish this entire plot thread had been included. So, out of all 3 versions of the movie, which one is the best? If you're a fan of Avatar, it's kind of hard to pick the theatrical cut. Since it's the shortest of the 3, we get the least amount of time on Pandora. But there's something to be said for the theatrical cut's pacing. It's impressive how tight this movie feels even at 2 hours and 40 minutes, thanks to Cameron's editorial instincts. I mean, there are literally 27 deleted scenes on the DVD, and that's not even counting the new footage in the special and extended editions. For the most part, Cameron knew which scenes to keep and which ones to cut. The special edition adds a sprinkling of scenes, most of which flesh out the world of Pandora rather than the story. But the additional scene of Sute provides a more emotionally resonant ending to his arc, along with a more satisfactory explanation of how Jake became chief of the Omaticaya. And it does introduce some important, if incomplete, storylines about a tragedy at a Na'vi school and the RDA's scheme to provoke the Na'vi into an attack. But the extended cut is the version where those storylines really sing. It gives them more room to breathe and deepens our understanding of characters like Neytiri and Grace. The deciding factor for most viewers might be whether they appreciate the new opening on Earth, but for me, that's one addition I think Cameron was right in leaving out the first time. Overall, the special edition does give us more time on Pandora, but it doesn't go far enough with its extended scenes to make the additions worthwhile. Between it and the theatrical cut, I prefer the latter. But it's hard to beat the extended cut, which includes all of the special edition scenes while incorporating its own new sequences to make them work. And I know, I already said that I'm glad Cameron discarded the opening on Earth, but even though it's not the ideal way to start the story, it doesn't prevent this cut from being the best version of Avatar there is. Tell me in the comments which version of Avatar is your favorite and why. If you're wondering where to find all 3 versions of Avatar, check the description of this video where I list out the various ones you can buy. And if you're a James Cameron fan, you might be interested in my breakdown of the alternate cut of Alien 3, the follow-up to Cameron's own Aliens. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.